Today, we become legends.
So the comments on my previous Smite science video were all super positive, and while the video itself didn't do great, the response was amazing. So today I'm going to cover another absurd Smite scenario where we find out exactly how fast Mercury is in Smite. Fastest god alive or slower than a turtle? We shall see. So as with any Smite scenario converted to the real world, we need an anchor point. As discussed in my previous video on how strong Hercules actually is, we established that minions in Smite are the god's mortal worshippers and so should be standard human height, with most gods being larger than humans. Also, Scylla is the same height as a minion in Smite, so if you saw her in real life it would be like looking at a 6-foot tall child with monster dogs for legs. Pretty creepy. But back on topic, with minions established as 1.8 meters or 5.9 feet for the Americans among us, we now need to apply this makeshift measuring stick to measure how far Mercury can move in a specific period of time, aka learn his top speed. But of course, we're not just talking about Mercury building full movement speed and running at you with W key, we're talking about his lightning fast ultimate that travels up to 300 in-game units of distance at max range. However, we only have the distance in Smite terms. We need to convert that distance to real world terms if we're going to find out exactly how fast Mercury can dash and what the implications of him doing so in the real world would be. To do this, I have a bit of a strange way of calculating flat distance along the ground. Since we only have the height of the gods and minions so far, we can't really compare that to the horizontal distance Mercury travels. But there's an easy way to do this conversion within Smite itself using Nox 2. There are probably other abilities that will work for this application as well, but Nox 2 is a perfect hemisphere, and so the radius of the ground targeter must be equal to the height of the hemisphere at its peak. Using minions again, we can calculate the peak height and thus the radius of Nox's 2 in real world units. Lining up the minions again, we can see that Nox's 2 is roughly 3 2/3 minions tall, aka 6.6 meters. As mentioned earlier, that also means that the radius of her 2 is 6.6 meters. I don't know about you guys, but Nox's 2 being more than 3 times my height puts a new fear in me of Nox combo that I didn't know I had. From actual in-game data, we know that Nox 2 is 20 Smite units in radius, which now allows us to directly convert between the real world meters and feet and the Smite world's distance units. That conversion rate is actually much cleaner than I expected at exactly 0.33 meters or 1.08 feet per in-game unit of distance. I can tell already that this conversion rate will be very useful for future episodes of the series, since most abilities in Smite give a description of exactly how many in-game units they travel or exactly how many in-game units of range the ability has, etc. But for this episode, we've done the groundwork and we can now simply convert the 300 units of distance that Mercury travels into real units, which comes out at 99 meters or 325 feet. Again, somehow these units have just worked out really well and we can easily compare Mercury's speed to, for example, Usain Bolt, the fastest 100-meter sprinter on record. But before we do that, we must get the other piece of the speed puzzle. We have the distance travelled, we just need the time it took to do so. For this, we have to go in game again and do some very fine-grained frame analysis to get the exact time, since Mercury's ult is pretty much instant to the naked eye. Playing at a capped 60 frames per second, we can see that Mercury arrives at his destination 100 meters away after just 12 frames of movement. The total animation is quite a bit longer than that, but I only took the amount of time he was actually moving from start to finish, not any wind up or finishing animations on the ability. At 60 frames per second, 12 frames is exactly 1/5 of a second or 200 milliseconds. That's the time it takes for Mercury to run a 100-meter dash. For reference, Usain Bolt, the fastest 100-meter sprinter in the world that I mentioned earlier, managed this distance in 9.58 seconds, or almost 48 times slower than Mercury. Based on the animation, Mercury appears to be travelling at the same constant speed throughout the whole ability and instantly accelerates to full speed on the first frame he starts moving in-game. Taking distance divided by time, we get 500 meters per second as Mercury's top speed. That's 1,118 miles per hour. The current land speed record for our species is 763 miles per hour, and that was done in a twin-engine jet-powered car. Mercury is significantly faster than the fastest possible land vehicle we've made thus far. This discovery brings a whole new appreciation for Mercury's ultimate being named Sonic Boom. That's the name given to the pressurized shockwaves produced by an object that is moving faster than sound, which travels at a paltry 343 meters per second compared to Mercury's Giga Chad 500 meters per second top speed. Sonic booms are actually the reason commercial supersonic flight is banned over most countries today, as the sound from supersonic planes passing overhead would wake people up and even cause damage to some weaker structures on the ground depending on the altitude of the plane. So if sonic booms from aircraft 60,000 feet in the air can wake people up and cause structural damage, what would happen if Mercury ulted next to you and went supersonic? Well, we're getting into the realms of the highly theoretical here, but you're almost certainly dead. This video of a Brazilian Air Force jet shows them flying fairly close overhead and it shatters the glass in the building. We can also go back to the Second World War for a more applicable example where sonic booms were actually used as weapons, similar to Mercury's ultimate in Smite. In the closing period of World War II, the Germans put to use the V2 rocket, which travelled at supersonic speeds and was near silent until impact, at which point the unfortunate onlookers heard a double boom, the actual impact of the rocket explosion as well as the sonic boom. These V2 launches proved deadly. Of the roughly 3,000 V2s that were launched at Allied cities, there was an estimated 9,000 deaths. However, we of course can't contribute all of that destructive power to just the sonic boom, there's also the impact of the bomb itself to worry about. However, this also applies to Mercury, and the main way he would obliterate you if he actually ran into you at speeds that can circumnavigate the entire Earth in less than 2 days just by running. Well, assuming Mercury is built like a human, because we have nothing better to go off of really, and his height measured in game is roughly 1.4 minions, that's 2.52 meters or 8'3" in human terms. Interestingly, that's the exact height of the current tallest man in the world, Sultan Kosen. He weighs in at 168 kilograms or 370 pounds, so we'll take Mercury's weight as being the same. So the kinetic energy dissipated when Mercury impacts you at 1100 miles an hour is equal to half mass times velocity squared. Plug our numbers of 168 kilograms and 500 meters per second into the equation, and we get a resulting energy dissipation of 21 million joules. The total energy dissipated by an F1 hand grenade is 250,000 joules for reference. That means Mercury running into you will release the energy equivalent of 84 hand grenades going off simultaneously right on top of you. I think it's safe to say that Mercury's ult will be one deadly ability if it hit you in real life. But that's all I got for this episode of Smite Science. If you enjoyed this one, don't forget to drop a like before you leave, and I'll catch you guys in another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.